Information tonight as Oklahoma investigators identified 2 bodies found as missing Kansas women. We continue to follow the latest on the homicide investigation gaining national attention. And troubling new numbers as the rate of suicides with Kansas teens increasing and at a fast pace. How one Kansas group is working to stop the stigma of mental health issues in young adults. Plus, take a look at this, just some of the damage after Monday night's round of severe weather. The cleanup underway after parts of Kansas is hit by tornadoes. What we're learning about the strength of these storms.
You're watching 12 News at 9 on KSCW.
Welcome into 12 News at 9. I'm Rachel Hackbarth. Tonight we continue to follow an investigation out of Oklahoma. Investigators there have identified the 2 bodies found in Texas County as 2 Kansas women, Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly. 4 people, Tiffany Adams, Tad Cullum, and Cole and Cora Twombly, are all charged with murder and kidnapping in the women's deaths. At least 2 are expected to make court appearances sometime tomorrow. Butler and Kelly went missing in March in Texas County, Oklahoma. On Monday, it was confirmed that Butler was in a custody dispute with one of the suspects in her kidnapping and death. Kelly was a court-appointed supervisor on a trip with Butler to see her children. Their car was found abandoned with blood on the road. A broken hammer was found nearby. A pistol clip was found inside of Kelly's purse, but no gun. The Twombly 16-year-old daughter told police that her parents came home 2 hours after the murders and told her to clean their truck. And she said that they told her that she no longer had to worry about Butler. We do have more details from an affidavit on this case. You can find that right now on the KWCH News app. Severe weather hitting some Kansas communities overnight. Right now, you're taking a look at video. This is out of Greenwood County, where 2 tornadoes touched down. The National Weather Service rates them as an EF1 and an EF2. The tornado hit southeast of Eureka, around 4:15 this morning. It downed trees and took out a barn at this property and also hit a carport. The homeowner telling us that their weather radio did go off, so they quickly took cover. As the storm rolled through, it only took a matter of 30 seconds. And the National Weather Service says that an EF1 tornado touched down in central Osage County early this morning. You're looking at some of the damage there. It had max winds of 110 miles per hour. It left damage to several trees and even some homes, as you can see. One couple says that they were in a camper that was tossed over, but they're okay tonight.
So it sounds like in all there were at least 4 tornadoes in Kansas yesterday. Just a reminder about the one that hit south of Eureka, EF1, and the one that was near Virgil, that's in the northeastern sections of Greenwood County, rated EF2 with a path of 2.7 miles long. We're going to have some very quiet weather out there tonight after having gusts of over 60 in western Kansas earlier today. Our wind speeds as we come on the air have finally dropped back below 20 in most of the state. Still a bit breezy in north central Kansas, but safe to say the wind speeds tomorrow won't be anything like what they were earlier today. We start out kind of cool, but no threat of any frost, climbing back into the upper 70s by early afternoon, and then we'll finish things off with 84 degrees around Wichita. Just a couple of clouds. Should turn out to be a very nice mid-April afternoon, but 80-degree weather is still well above average for this time of the year. Now we're watching and waiting for some thunderstorms to show up in Kansas tomorrow night. So when we come back, we'll highlight all of the new data coming in on Future Track and look ahead to what might be some more rain potential this weekend. And it's also going to come with some very cool weather. The rest of your forecast a little bit later.
Thank you, Ross. Teen suicide in Kansas, alarming numbers according to the Kansas Health Institute. Between 2001 and 2020, Kansas saw a 65% increase in suicide deaths in young people ages 10 to 24. Mental health providers and the U.S. Surgeon General say social media is playing a part in that problem. Now one Kansas group is working to stop the stigma of mental health issues in teens. New at 9, Brandon Stitt has what this group hopes to achieve.
I don't like to talk about it, but it needs to be talked about, so I'm going to talk about it.
Katie Smith is a junior at Valley Center High School. She, like many other teens, has struggled with her mental health. But what makes her different, she's now talking about it with other teens through the Kansas group called 0 Reasons Why.
We go into schools and talk about mental health to try to destigmatize mental health.
The reason it's important, according to the Kansas Health Institute, teen death by suicide in Kansas went up nearly 65% between 2001 and 2020. That outpaced the 41% increase seen in the U.S. overall. Concerning enough for the U.S. Surgeon General to tell CBS News last year it was a crisis.
We have seen an increase in depression, in anxiety, in suicide, in loneliness among young people. There's a full-blown crisis that's taking place in our country right now.
Social media is being blamed, but Zero Reasons Why campaign director Jeff Short says his group is trying to use it more positively.
And as that's happening, you see it within their schools, you see kids that are saying, hey, I'm not perfect either. I'm struggling. I need help. And that's really beautiful to see.
With the group now reaching more teens, Short says they've been seeing the number of teen suicides decrease.
We're seeing those stats fall. So we're seeing the number of attempts fall, and we're seeing the overall completions of suicide fall as well.
And for Katie, there is one thing she thinks that would help us all.
We need to teach compassion, and I think that's what we're really lacking as a community, is compassion for each other.
In Wichita, Brandon Stitt, 12 News.
The Kansas Highway Patrol is being ordered to pay more than $2 million regarding the Kansas two-step case. In 2019, the KHP was sued by the ACLU and Spencer Law Firm over the constitutionality of the Kansas two-step. That's the practice of a trooper walking away from a traffic stop, hoping to come up with a reason to search someone's vehicle and then returning. Now KHP being ordered to pay the ACLU's legal costs and other fees in addition to the financial compensation. Troopers can still practice the two-step, but it's at the risk of facing more civil suits.
We would hope that after 3 separate trial verdicts against them, that the KHP would understand that continuing to engage in such behavior is improper.
The court placed the KHP under court supervision for up to 4 years. The Highway Patrol is still appealing the ruling on the two-step. Tonight, the KHP responding to our question, where will all that money come from to pay the fees? They say that they're aware of the court's ruling, and we will have no statements to provide until the Attorney General's office has reviewed and evaluated this. Nurses at 2 Ascension Via Christi hospitals here in Wichita are securing their first collective agreement. After years of back and forth and 2 strikes in just a year, nurses are getting the priorities that they were asking for in their new contract with Ascension Via Christi. The new contract will set in place nurse-patient ratios, a nurse-led committee to address concerns, and a wage scale based on experience. The contract took effect when it was ratified yesterday and lasts through 2026.
Before, we did not have a voice when things were not like we felt they should be. Now it's in a contract, it's on paper. Now our goal is to hold them accountable. They've agreed to this contract. They agreed to these mechanisms in this contract.
And from Ascension says it's pleased that the initial contract was ratified by the nurses, adding these contracts respect the needs of our registered nurses and create a solid foundation for a collaborative and respectful working relationship. New at 9, it's a first-of-its-kind task force being formed by the Derby Fire Marshal. It's to address a growing number of emergency calls for people who have fallen down and prevent the falls from happening in the first place. 12 News reporter Cale Chapman spoke with the fire marshal and also health professionals about why this is needed.
We know there's a Derby solution to this, and we're hoping to wrangle one up.
Derby Fire Marshal Jonathan Marr says more than 20% of the emergency calls Derby Fire responds to are to help someone who has fallen down.
If that were anything else, like house fires or car accidents or drownings, we would build a program around that to try to reduce those numbers. And I thought to myself, why aren't we doing this for falls?
Marr says the task force will work to help people make their homes safer and prevent future falls.
Experiencing one fall doubles the chance of having another. Maybe they just need help moving their furniture around, removing trip hazards. Maybe they need a safety handrail installed in their bathroom. We know that there's ways that we can help prevent a future fall.
At Rock Regional Hospital, Mandy Petrie sees patients every week suffering from injuries after falling down. She says that's why they're joining the task force.
Patients who have broken their hips, patients who've experienced head bleeds, broken arms and things like that. So definitely helping prevent those injuries is near and dear to us.
A fall from stairs like these or even from a standing position can be dangerous. And Dr. Kara Cox with Advanced Orthopedics Associates says these kinds of falls can cost people their independence.
A third of our seniors fall down every year. When you break your hip as a senior, the likelihood of going back home again after you've rehabbed your hip is pretty low.
In Derby, Cale Chapman, 12 News.
And the Fall Prevention Task Force will have their first meeting on April 25th at the Derby Library at 6 p.m. That meeting is open to anyone who would like to join. If you've ever flown, you likely have some familiarity with turbulence, but is air travel getting bumpier? In the next half hour, we take a look at that issue. And a criminal investigation is open into the deadly Baltimore bridge collapse. What we know today about that investigation, that is coming up. And a plane makes an emergency landing in Kansas City after it's struck by lightning. The details of that frightening situation after the break.
You're watching 12 News at 9 on KSCW. Online at KWCH.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Watching your wallet tonight. With summer break right around the corner, many people are thinking about taking some time off. But is taking or planning for a vacation right now too expensive? Lisa Roberts, a married mother of two, says the rising cost of living is making it difficult for people to travel, resulting in changes to her summer plans and creating a lot of stress in a time meant for relaxing.
With the cost of things, you're often just choosing one or two things or limiting the activities that you do once you're there. Sometimes I feel guilt because we would like to travel to see the ocean or the beaches or even go out of the country. At this point in time, for a family of four, it's not within our budget.
Way to save on vacations here in Kansas is the Sunflower Summer app. It runs again from May 25th and through August 11th. With it, you can get free tickets to attractions all across the state. All you have to do is download the app. We have that information for you on our KWCH app under links that we mentioned. Take a look at this new video. This is from Kansas City, Missouri. A flight bound for Chicago making an emergency landing at Kansas City International Airport. This was this morning. That plane was struck by lightning. The American Airlines flight did safely return to the airport. Our news partners at KCTV in Kansas City tell us no one on board was hurt. And that plane that you see right there, it did somehow manage to land safely. And Ross, we talk about lightning there. We saw so much lightning last night.
Yeah, and Rachel, what most people don't realize, probably a pretty popular question we get from young kids, if you're flying and you get struck by lightning, are you okay? And yes, most of the time you're going to be just fine.
It's just terrifying.
It is probably very, very scary, that's for sure. But yeah, a lot of lightning last night. Unfortunately, just not a lot of rainfall to show after the storms passed on through. We did wind up with blowing dust again today in western Kansas, as this picture shows from Dodge City. If you look carefully, you can see just that thin haze of brown in the air, again, because of wind gusts above 60 earlier today. Didn't get enough rain last night. We wind up with about a half of an inch from El Dorado. Eureka from Greenwood County with about an inch and a third. Wichita, less than a tenth of an inch. When we come back, we'll see how long we'll have to wait for the next chance to show up in Kansas, and an updated look at Future Track next.
The fate of more than 350 January 6 defendants, including former President Donald Trump, now in the hands of the Supreme Court. The latest on today's hearing after the break.
12 News at 9 on KSCW.
A law used to charge hundreds of January 6 defendants and the former president now under scrutiny from the U.S. Supreme Court. Today, the Supreme Court heard arguments over the harshest penalty that the DOJ is bringing against those defendants. Those advocating for the defendants say that the DOJ cherry-picked a statute from a law, actually meant to deal with evidence tampering. They argue that it was never meant to cover events like January 6, and enforcing the law that way could impact free speech. Attorneys for the government argue the letter of that law is clear. Obstructing an official proceeding is a crime, and they say that is what happened on January 6th. The court is expected to hand down its ruling in late June. Today, 7 jurors were seated on day 2 of former President Donald Trump's hush money trial in Manhattan. Both the prosecution and defense have 10 strikes to remove a juror from the pool. So far, each side has used 6 preemptive strikes, so both have only 4 strikes left. Court will not be in session on Wednesday. Jury selection will continue Thursday until a panel of 12 New Yorkers and likely 6 alternates is selected.
Now, your accurate Storm Team 12 forecast.
Well, all is quiet tonight in Kansas. If you were with us last night at this time, we were just kind of waiting and watching for our first thunderstorms to go up, leaving behind not a lot of rain. But we certainly had an awful lot of wind earlier today. That has since gone down. And in this pattern of windy one day and calm the next, well, it fits right in with how things are going this week, because tomorrow most of us get a chance to enjoy some much calmer weather. But guess what's coming back on Thursday? That's right, the Kansas breeze. We're talking about gusts of 30 to 40. It should go down for Friday and Saturday, and I think most of the weekend, not really looking all that windy. It will be a nice change for us. Gust of 64 today in Goodland. Had a wind gust of 59 from Garden City. Colby 58. Hill City, Atwood, Dodge City, all gusting above 50 earlier today. The kind of wind speed you might expect with severe thunderstorms, but of Of course, we didn't have any of that in Kansas this afternoon. The big low pressure system, same one that helped spark off thunderstorms last night and create all the wind earlier today, it's spinning around in parts of Iowa. There's been severe weather and there have been several confirmed tornadoes in Iowa earlier today, even some minor reports of damage that we're aware of tonight. We're on the back side of the system. That's why our winds have been out of the west and northwest today, but as that moves away from Kansas, our wind speeds continue to go down. Rainfall and melted snow since the beginning of February. This continues to be a very significant topic because we have a lot of areas in Kansas that are just not getting that spring rainfall. Like Dodge City, less than an inch since the beginning of February. We would normally be closer to 3. Wichita's had about 2.5, but we would typically be over 5 at this point in April. Salina, with just over 1.5 inches, would typically be closer to 4. Goodland's about on target. There are just so many areas in Kansas that are waiting on that good spring rainfall, and it is not to be found tomorrow. And for most of Kansas, it may not show up until, well, maybe next week. The temperatures tomorrow back above 80 degrees. Ellsworth, Kinsley, Cheney, look at 82 in Lakin. It is going to be a very warm Wednesday afternoon. Of course, the day's going to start off rather cool. Most of us waking up to 40s, but a lot of sunshine coming up Wednesday afternoon. A couple of things to watch for tomorrow night. Humidity coming into southeast Kansas, that will set off some storms. And then watch the cold front coming out of Nebraska. There you see some thunderstorms going up east of Wichita at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. Those are probably not going to be that widespread, but some of you south and east of the Turnpike will see storms. As the cold front makes its way through Kansas early Thursday, the best we could hope for would be a few showers, but sadly, I just don't think we're going to get much rain out of the front. Lots of clouds Thursday morning. Eventually, we'll go back into sunshine, but dropping the temperatures coming up for Thursday, most of us back into 50s and 60s. And here we go again, the Kansas wind. I know it really gets to be a pain, but gusts of 30 to 40 will be on the way for Thursday, and highs will mostly be 50s and 60s. So we're going to go into some very cool weather this weekend, and you'll see on the 10-day forecast momentarily that we do have a chance for showers Saturday. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't look like it's going to turn out to be very much. Southwest Kansas might see up to about 1/2 inch, but elsewhere around the state, just doesn't look like it's going to add up to much. From the Epic Center tonight, Capitol Federal Skycam 12, we have a clear sky. The wind is going down. We're at 66 degrees. Most of us drop into the 40s overnight. 50 for Wichita. We're dropping into the upper 30s for Goodland, 42 in Garden City. Your Wednesday forecast is even warmer than today. Most of us back above 80 degrees. Enjoy the calmer winds tomorrow because it's back on Thursday with windy conditions out of the north. Maybe a few early morning showers. The rain chance on Saturday. Again, it's not going to be much. A cool weekend ahead, 62 on Sunday. We start to warm back up next week, and optimistic maybe we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms next Tuesday.
Thank you, Ross. New at 9, new investigations now underway to see who may be responsible for the deadly Baltimore bridge collapse. This is 2 of the victims' bodies are still missing. Cole Higgins has more tonight.
3 weeks after a massive cargo ship struck Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, authorities confirmed the body of a 4th victim has been recovered. 6 construction workers who were working on the bridge at the time of the collapse plunged into the Patapsco River and died. 2 of their bodies are still missing.
They were living the American dream, fixing America's infrastructure. Out there just filling potholes, not knowing it was going to be their last day.
Attorneys for the families of 2 of the victims and 1 survivor announcing they are conducting their own investigation into the bridge collision. The ship's owner and manager have filed a petition in federal court asking for a cap of about $43.7 million on potential liability payouts. Attorney Kevin Mahoney says the company's petition relies on an outdated law and is calling on Congress to repeal it.
The Limitation of Liability Act was passed 173 years ago. In 1851. That's about 20 years before Thomas Edison invented the light bulb.
Meanwhile, the FBI confirms the agency, along with the Coast Guard, has launched a criminal investigation into the bridge collapse, telling us, quote, the FBI is present aboard the cargo ship Dolly, conducting court-authorized law enforcement activity. The city of Baltimore also looking into who may be to blame for destroying the bridge that 30,000 Marylanders relied on every day.
Anything that we can do to help Baltimore recover from that tragedy.
I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
A major mail problem. Why the U.S. Senate is blaming the Postmaster General for a delay in you getting your mail. Any trouble getting your mail, you are definitely not alone. Senators on Capitol Hill say the United States Postal Service is facing an existential crisis through no fault of their carriers. They're blaming the man at the top. 12 News Washington Bureau reporter Molly Martinez has that story new at 9.
It's been 3 years since Louis DeJoy took over as Postmaster General. Tuesday, senators were united in their grievances that as the head of the Postal Service, he hasn't delivered.
What's lacking is basic competence. The Postmaster General has personal responsibility for making sure the mail is delivered on time. That's his job. He's failing.
Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff led the fleet Tuesday, interrogating Louis DeJoy about a postal service in peril.
The Postmaster General has personal responsibility for making sure the mail is delivered on time. That's his job. He's failing.
The hearing comes 2 years after Congress gave a $100 billion bailout to the USPS.
The intent of this law was to help ensure the Postal Service can keep reliably serving all communities.
It's an investment Senator Rand Paul doesn't believe yielded a return to the sender.
I argued that giving more money to the Postal Service was equivalent to burning money. However, that may have been a false equivalency because at least when we burn money, it provides warmth.
DeJoy blamed pensions bleeding the USPS dry, fuel costs, and mismanagement.
We are stabilizing the operation.
With an election looming and millions reliant on mail-in ballots, Ossoff says time is running out.
The Postmaster General did not demonstrate, in my view, the urgency.
While Senator Ossoff alluded that DeJoy's days could be numbered, he did not give a specific timeline. In Washington, Molly Martinez.
Research finds severe turbulence is increasing due to climate change. We're investigating what this means for your next flight.
Well, the tax deadline may be past us, but scammers are jumping on the opportunity to try to take more money from you. I'm Jamie Tucker. Coming up, we're going to hear one of those scams to show you what to watch out for.
That's all in another 30 minutes of 12 News at 9, still ahead on KSCW.
News at 9 on KSCW.
Welcome back to 12 News at 9. Chances are, if you've flown on a plane, you have felt some turbulence. Sometimes it's a few bumps, other times it can turn into a rocky ride. In 2021, the National Transportation Safety Board says that turbulence is a major cause of injuries to crew and also passengers. Research finds that air travel is getting even bumpier. Kristen Crowley investigates how unpredictable and potentially severe turbulence could impact your next trip.
Without notice.
The plane shook and then it went into a sudden drop.
It can violently shake an airplane.
My life flashed before my eyes. I was scared.
Putting crew members and passengers at risk.
And there was lights. People were holding on to lights because it fell into their laps.
My mom wasn't buckled. And so I turned to my right and I saw that she hit the ceiling and she hit the floor.
But turbulence can cause more than just a bumpy ride. In some cases, people get seriously hurt.
I saw a handful of people with lacerations on their head and blood dripping down.
A 2021 National Transportation Safety Board report found between 2009 and 2018, turbulence accounted for a third of all accidents on larger commercial airlines, and the majority of passengers seriously injured were not wearing seatbelts.
Just imagine getting on your local Carnival roller coaster ride, taking the seatbelt off, and saying, "Yeah, I'll hold myself in." You won't.
Captain Dennis Tazier is a spokesperson for the Allied Pilots Association and has been a pilot with American Airlines for over 30 years.
It was not a rare event to come into turbulence. It was all discomforting. Ride's getting a little choppy, you spill your coffee, let's get the seatbelt sign on.
But in recent years, he says he's noticed an increase in frequency and intensity of turbulence.
Now what we're seeing is the first sign of turbulence, you jump immediately to, okay, this could get really worse. That sounds like perhaps a panicked attitude, but it's not. It's one based in reality.
Tazier is right. A recent study shows there has been an uptick in severe turbulence, but to understand the increase, it's important to know how the disturbances in the air work. Turbulence can strike when a plane flies through sections of air that are changing in direction and speed.
You're going way up north and coming back down here. because there was huge storms right here.
Pilots know thunderstorms and mountain ranges can create turbulence, so they can usually avoid it. But there is an invisible form known as clear air turbulence, and it's difficult to predict.
The tricky thing about that is that satellites can't see it, but what satellites can see, and they have been monitoring since the 1970s, is the jet stream, the shape and structure of the jet stream.
Airplanes can fly within the jet stream to boost speeds and reduce travel times. But Professor Paul Williams at the University of Reading in England says that's where a majority of clear air turbulence occurs. He co-authored a study that found between 1979 and 2020, there was a significant increase in severe turbulence over parts of the U.S. and the North Atlantic, one of the world's busiest flight routes.
I'm saying there's 55% more turbulence in the atmosphere. Doesn't necessarily mean there's 55% more turbulence on flights, because pilots are really experts at avoiding turbulence, and they've been getting better at doing that over the past 4 decades.
Williams says the increase in severe turbulence is consistent with effects of climate change. He explains CO2 emissions have impacted temperatures across the jet stream.
It is that north-south temperature difference that drives the jet stream in the first place. A stronger temperature difference means a more strongly sheared jet stream.
And says encounters with this type of turbulence could become more common.
I think the main expectation is that for every 10 minutes you've spent in turbulence in the past, that could be 20, 30 minutes. Towards the end of this century.
The Federal Aviation Administration is working to modernize its pilot reporting system, which tracks turbulence, while Delta and American Airlines are using crowdsourcing apps among pilots.
They had us on a most crazy route.
That's what Captain Taser uses, and he showed us how it works.
It's Google Maps for the potholes in the sky.
Taser says the tech allows pilots to record when and where they hit turbulence and its intensity.
This orange is moderate turbulence, and this red, severe turbulence.
Giving other pilots in the air a heads up about the turbulence their radars can't detect. It also automatically records turbulent air when the iPad shakes.
It's extraordinarily accurate, and knowing that I'm not just looking at a report someone typed in, it's their iPad, and it's shaking.
Other pilots can see those reports of turbulence and decide if they need to make any route adjustments to avoid it.
I don't get on a flight where I don't see the first officer bring it up, or one of us is crowdsourcing, even on a clear, wide open day.
And in cases where turbulence cannot be avoided and it leads to injuries,
there were several other people that hit their head. When we landed, paramedics came and they were wheeling people out.
First responders say you should stay seated so crews can quickly treat those in need.
Representing American Airlines pilots says it's seen a, quote, significant spike in safety issues on flights. The Allied Pilots Association warning members of ongoing problems, including tools left in aircraft wheel wells, collisions involving planes being towed on runways, and pressure to get planes back in service to maintain performance goals. The warning comes after a series of recent incidents in the airline industry. Last month alone, there were a dozen incidents on United Airlines flights. In January, a door plug blew out of an Alaska Airlines plane. The union is out now urging members to report problems and resist being rushed or intimidated when it does come to safety issues.
Well, the kind of wind that we had today in Kansas would have made for some rough air travel, that's for sure. We had wind gusts topping 60 out in western Kansas. Those are the kind of wind speeds we look for when we're dealing with severe thunderstorms, although we didn't have any severe storms today out in western Kansas. Had a wind gust today of 56 from Dodge City. The peak wind gust, by the way, from Wichita in the upper 40s. Well, the wind has gone down tonight. The temperatures have cooled from where we were earlier today. We made it up to 82 in Wichita. Look at the 80s across parts of central and eastern Kansas. We're going to be just as warm, if not even warmer, as we start looking ahead to your Wednesday forecast. So get ready for a little bit more of a bump up in the temperature. Tomorrow afternoon, widespread 80s, but the numbers on the right represent what a cold front coming into Kansas is going to do as we move into the second half of this week. We are looking for a little bit of a cool down coming up for Thursday and Friday. Now, looking at the future track, because thunderstorm chances will be coming back to Kansas for tomorrow night. When May and I come back with the rest of your forecast in just a few minutes, we'll focus on that chance for storms Wednesday night and also give you an outlook to the end of April. Are we expecting a switch towards some wetter than average weather around here? Find out straight ahead.
A Florida family whose roof was hit by an object falling from the sky last month now knows where that object came from, why they say they're in disbelief. And a freshman star for the Jayhawks declares for the next level, what it means for KU coming up in sports.
You're watching 12 News at 9 on KSCW. Online at KWCH.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Olympic Games are just around the corner. They're nearly 100 days away. Today, the Olympic torch was lit ahead of the 2024 Paris Games. In line with ancient tradition, the flame was lit in Olympia, Greece. 600 torchbearers will carry it over 3 weeks as the flame journeys to France before the opening ceremony in Paris. That'll be July 26. It'll then officially mark the start of the Games. Today, NASA confirming that a piece of debris that crashed through a Florida home last month came off of the International Space Station. The space agency says that metal object you just saw was part of a space station cargo pallet. NASA expected it to fully burn up as it entered the Earth's atmosphere, but that small piece survived and then it tore through a Naples, Florida home.
I was completely in disbelief. What are the chances to something landing on my house with such force to cause so much damage? And totally, I'm super grateful that nobody got hurt.
The cylinder is 4 inches tall and weighs about 1.5 pounds. It was used to mount batteries on the cargo pallet. NASA says the space station will investigate to determine how the debris survived and make any changes if needed.
Man, would you go buy a lottery ticket? That's so rare.
I know. I mean, or maybe opposite, because your luck seems to be pretty bad.
It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's just debris coming from the
NASA.
space station.
No biggie. Well, not quite as loud as that, but last night the storms were pretty loud.
Yeah, stuff falling from the sky last night in the form of some hail. We did have some gusty winds, and of course we had a couple of tornadoes reported too. One of them, or a couple of them actually, out of Greenwood County, one up in Smith County too, and then some quarter-size hail reported from Ness County. When we come back, there is a chance for thunderstorms tomorrow night, and is there a chance we could make a switch towards some wetter than average weather for Kansas? Find out next.
Accurate Storm Team 12 forecast.
Well, we're glad to have you with us here on a Tuesday night. Last night we were just starting to see some of our first thunderstorms pop up over in western Kansas, but tonight all is quiet and the wind has finally started to go down. We certainly are thankful for that. 66 degrees, 48% is our humidity. Now the temperatures tomorrow are going to be quite warm, but that's kind of fitting with how things have turned lately for us here in Kansas. We're back above 80 degrees. It's not warm enough for any record highs for the middle of the week. Thursday we end up behind a cold front, strong north winds, 50s and 60s, and we'll likely wind up with similar numbers on Friday, a mix of 50s and 60s, another cool day with clouds increasing from the west. We still need rain. There's nobody out there that will argue that because we've got low lake levels. Of course, we didn't get that much widespread rainfall last night. Well, 10 o'clock Wednesday night, look at the thunderstorms trying to go up east of Wichita, and some of those will contain some gusty winds, heavy rainfall, and perhaps maybe some small hail. Once the storms develop, they're going to probably move on to the east, and then with the cold front racing through the state, that might be enough to stir up a few widely scattered rain showers, but keep your expectations not just low, but very low, because I really don't think we're going to get much as the front comes pushing on through. But a strong north wind, lots of clouds Thursday morning. Eventually the sun comes out heading into the afternoon, but windy, and it will be a bit cooler. This is the severe weather outlook for Wednesday night. A level 1 out of a 5, mostly focusing over the Flint Hills, areas into southeast Kansas. We might see some quarter-size hail. Wouldn't be impossible to have some wind gusts of around 50 to 60, but this is not looking like a widespread severe weather event for Wednesday night. The end of this week is going to be quite cool. We start to get into that for Thursday and Friday, but Saturday afternoon, most of us will be looking at low to mid 50s, and by Sunday morning, if the clouds begin to break apart, there is a chance we could be looking at some frosty weather over parts of Kansas Sunday morning. If you started your spring garden, we'll need to watch that Sunday morning time frame very carefully. Rainfall outlook, this is looking a bit encouraging for the end of April. There is a possibility that a shift in the weather pattern could bring above average precipitation back to the central U.S. Although in full disclosure mode here, we have seen this before and it just hasn't worked out for Kansas. It also looks like we're going to be above average on the temperatures for the end of the month. Most of western Kansas tomorrow with sunshine, 79 in Colby, 82 in Garden City. We'll get to 83 in Dodge with 81 in Larned. Great Bend tomorrow should be back up around 80 degrees. Salina at 82. Meanwhile, Winfield looking at 85. Sunshine, enjoy the lower wind speeds for tomorrow. 82 in Hutch, 83 in El Dorado. Wichita warming to 84 with sunshine and a few high clouds as we go into the afternoon. Your 4-day forecast, maybe some early morning showers Thursday. Don't want to oversell it because it's not going to turn out to be much. 64 Friday and Saturday with clouds around. We may see a few more showers, but again, rainfall amounts this weekend will likely be very light.
This time of year, many people think of the Internal Revenue Service as the bad guys, but scammers are the worst of the worst, tricking people into giving them your money. Technology gives scammers the upper hand through emails, phone calls, even texts. Our consumer technology reporter, Jamie Tucker, shows us some common tax scams and what you need to watch out for.
To believe that it was a willful act done with the intent to defraud the government and the IRS.
If you answer the phone from a tax scammer, this is what you'll hear.
The reason of the call is to inform you that you're being listed as a primary suspect in a case being filed by IRS.
Saying there's unpaid taxes that could land you in jail as early as today.
You could be spending at least 18 months in the jail before the investigation are completed.
I feel like no one would ever fall for that. You're wrong. The IRS said last year over $300 million were lost by U.S. taxpayers to someone impersonating a government official, many times from the IRS. The scammers can and do use spoofing technology to make it appear the phone call is coming from the IRS. But it's almost always someone with a foreign accent. They'll try to scare you into buying gift cards. Hang up on these scammers. Watch for scam emails too, and subject lines such as update filing details, complete your tax return, or get your e-file PIN number. Don't open these, and for heaven's sakes, don't click on the link which can install malware on your computer. The IRS will not contact you through phone, email, or social media. If they need to get you, they're going to send you a letter. And if it's important in asking for personal information, it'll be a certified letter. The scammers do not use the mail because stamps cost money and the phone calls are virtually free. That's What the Tech. I'm Jamie Tucker.
A legendary MLB manager that spent time in Kansas City passes away. His legacy explained next in sports.
KU basketball in the midst of potentially one of the most interesting off seasons in program history. So many questions around the transfer portal and what the team may look like after the experiment last year ended in the round of 32. Tonight, some big news. This could play a huge part into it. Just within the last few hours, KU star freshman Johnny Furphy released a statement by way of the Kansas Basketball X account declaring for the NBA draft while also maintaining his college eligibility. Many NBA mock drafts predict Furphy to be a late first-round selection as he's still only 19 years old. Here's part of his statement. He said, and quote, "What I've learned at Kansas has changed the way I think about basketball, and no matter what happens from here, I'll always be a Jayhawk." The deadline for Furphy to announce a potential return to Kansas is June 16th at 4 p.m. Central, as the NBA draft takes place on June 26th. Jayhawks are working to fill the void. KU reportedly held an in-home visit with Alabama guard Rylan Griffin yesterday. He averaged 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists this past season as Alabama went to the Final Four while shooting better than 45% from the field and 39% from three. 6'5" guard has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Here's a look at the roster right now while we wait on a decision from Hunter Dickinson. DeJuan and KJ, the main returners. Zach Clements coming off of his redshirt year. Jamari McDowell and Almarco Jackson played roles last year. They'll be coming back. Flory Badunga, they're big for the freshman class coming in. 2 transfer guards so far in Riley Kugel of Florida and Zeke Mayo of South Dakota State. They have 2 open scholarships as of this moment. Some K-State football news as well. A new scheduling update to look forward to in 6 years. Set your timer. Cats come to terms on a home-and-home series against Oregon State of the new Pac-2 conference. Kansas State previously scheduled to play Rutgers in a home-and-home in these 2 years, but that's reportedly off the table now, so seemingly replaced by this series with the Beavers. No Royals baseball in the Windy City today due to rain in Chicago. The Royals instead will play a straight doubleheader tomorrow at 1:10. Game 2 will follow 30 to 45 minutes after Game 1, so a start time between 4 and 5 p.m. likely. One positive, this gives Salvador Perez another day of rest without missing a game after that injury the other day. Hall of Fame manager Whitey Herzog died on Tuesday. The Hall of Fame manager patrolled the Royals dugout from 1975 to 1979 and was a member of the Kansas City Athletics from 1958 to 1960. Herzog's Cardinals won the World Series in 1982. He was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 2010 and is a member of the Royals and the Cardinals Hall of Fame.
Storms last night were pretty strong, but we still need some more rain.
Did we have storms last night?
I think apparently. I didn't sleep very well.
We did, and we got a little bit of rain, but we need a whole lot more. We'll check the chances with new look at future tracking 10.
All right. Thank you, Russ. We'll see you on Channel 12.